Peace and love. My name is Montague Connolly, and I'm an herbalist, I'm a healer, I'm a diviner, and I want to talk to you a little bit about foraging in nature, going to gather edible wild plants for your consumption or for your medicine. Usually before I go out into nature, go into the forest or even my own neighborhood for plants, I usually start with a spiritual component. I like to sort of either sit down and visualize what I'm going to do, or I can say a prayer. I've also poured water before I've left the house. Sometimes in nature, it's also fun to sort of set up a small altar, like create some sacred space, like burn some sage, gather certain flowers that you're familiar with or that you have an affinity to, gather some sticks, maybe take your necklace off and put it on there, or whatever you want to do to kind of create that special area. Now, some people might say, what's so special about an altar? Why would you even set up an altar? It doesn't make sense. Isn't everything sacred? Well, I look at it like light, for example, so you can shoot light very loosely over a wide area, or you can take that light and concentrate it like a laser. So when you're doing this, when you're gathering these sticks, when you're gathering these things that are important to you, these things that you have an affinity for, what you're doing is you're sort of creating a portal, because you're pulling all that light together, all that intention together, all those spirits together that you have an affinity for, and you're putting them in the same location and locked in with that intention. It creates a portal, sort of like a fountain that kind of just creates a focal point for all the love and the power that you've put into it. That's the way I think of it. And so it's sort of like giving all the spirits, all the light, all the energy in your area a space designated to its function. It's saying, hey, this is what I want you to do with me. Hey, I notice you, I honor you, I respect you so much and I honor you so much that I'm bringing you to this area. Don't you feel my love? Can't you feel my devotion? Look, I went through all this extra work to bring you here. Now I want to tell you what I'm trying to do. And hopefully you'll send in those guides. You'll send in that energy that I need, that extra boost, that fountain, so that I can get what I need to get created finished. It's a type of prayer. It's a prayer with the hands. It's a prayer with your environment, and the intention and the objects that you pull together, do create a very peaceful starting place for the person who's working. But, that's not for everyone. But if it's for you, do it. You might like it. There's some really beautiful things you can create. If not, maybe you just want to pour a little bit of water or say a prayer before you head out. When is it good to forage? I say it's good to forage for practice, to get out there and develop the skill a little bit. But also, sometimes there's times where you're in a state of emergency and you got to know where to find food, because maybe you don't have any money. Maybe things have gotten that rough where you don't have money, or maybe you're lost somewhere and you want to eat, So those are times when it's good to forage, or when you need to create your own medicine. But there was a time in my life, several years back, many years back, where I was struggling and my knowledge of foraging came in handy. Some of us don't even know to look. We think everything's unsafe. We don't realize that there are things growing right next to us, not even exotic things. A lot of people, they'll throw their pear cores out the window. They're throwing apples around. These seeds are being spread. Sometimes there's a pear tree no one's paying attention to, right in your neighborhood, a peach tree, just because no one's paying. Crab apples. There's crab apples that no one is paying attention to that are delicious and filling and juicy and sweet and good for you. But we've been taught, oh, those small apples, don't eat them. But they can save a life. Those small apples could save your life. During the phase that I'm speaking of, I was even eating acorns. Acorns are great too, especially if you're a beginner. Everyone knows what an acorn looks like, right? And if not, Google acorns. You'll recognize the look. And through testing your acorns, when you find them, you start to notice certain patterns. You'll notice that, oh, this acorn tastes good, but on this other tree, these acorns don't taste so good. Usually acorns from the English oak are super sour and so bitter you can't eat them, not raw, but then you might find another oak where you pick it up and you're like, wow, this is good. So you want to start memorizing. Wow, this tree with this leaf, with this type of leaf. You can even get a tree book, a guide to learning trees. So you can start to look at the leaves and notice the different leaf patterns. You don't need the book to do that, but the book will help you start narrowing down the actual name of the tree or of the type of oak or whatever tree you're working with. But just for someone just out and about, yeah, just remember the tree that you went to. Like there's a tree outside of South High School, for example, right next to the parking lot that gives delicious acorns every year. And they're all over around the trees, and no one's grabbing that because no one knows where to look. So you want to look at places no one else is looking, and you can just harvest a little at a time, But I really I want to stress to you that it's very important for in emergency situations to really pay attention to your neighborhood, because it could be a matter of life and death. The other thing is to know which poison plants are in your neighborhood, or even in your location. For example, I know that poison hemlock grows at this altitude that I'm at. So anything that closely resembles poison hemlock, I'm not going to eat it. If I go 10,000 feet up in the mountains, I know that's OSHA territory. I know there's other plants growing up there. And I know poison hemlock doesn't like those heights. So I know the chances of me running into poison hemlock are a lot slimmer, like 1% probably. And then I know more characteristics about that plant to make sure of that, So that's another big part of it, is just knowing what grows in your area, what grows on this side of the U.S. or that side of the U.S., and making sure that, because that narrows it down big time, And so it's also good to take a trip with an herbalist every now and then. If you know any herbalists, just take a trip with an herbalist, and they can kind of start pointing things out and, getting you familiar with certain plants. You can even gather plants that you don't know and bring them to an herbarium, botanic gardens somewhere. Every botanic gardens has an herbarium. You can go in there and say, hey, and they'll charge you a little fee, but you can ask them what that plant is and get a good and then look up the rest on your own once they tell you the Latin name. But the main thing is you want to stick to what you know and gradually expand. So maybe you want to start with dandelion, which you can put together and make wonderful like dandelion fritters, in a skillet, where you put a little batter on the dandelion, or maybe you just want to pop the heads off the dandelions and just eat them. That's edible flour there. Maybe you want to get some roots. That whole plant is edible and high mineral. But moving from there, maybe you'll learn cleavers, or maybe you'll learn, even thistle is edible, So you can just gradually move out from what you know and keep practicing. And as your knowledge expands, your fear will go away, and your ability to tell what's good and what's not will grow as well. So whether you're using an herbalist, an herbarium, or a good foraging book, there's a lot of really good foraging books out there. If you have any questions, you can email me. I'm at africanamericanshaman@gmail.com. You can also follow me on Patreon at A Root Awakening. That's AROOT Awakening, and I'm there to answer any questions as well. So, and when you're foraging, you want to stick to very places that aren't really sprayed with pesticides. So maybe certain alleyways are good because people usually are only spraying their front yards. Places farther out in the countryside or in the mountains, those are good places where you can go to start picking things, and trying things out. And so you just want to know really what's growing in your neighborhood or growing in your area. You want to try your best to identify what you have or take it to get identified. Then there's other tests you can do to see if it's poisonous or not. If it's an emergency, you can always take a plant and and kind of rub it on your arm, on your wrist. Let it sit for about 50 minutes. See if there's itching or irritation. And 15, 20 minutes later, if there's nothing going on there, move it to your lip. But once again, this is after you've taken all precautions, and let's say you're out of choices. You can move it to your lip, put it in your lip, leave it in there for about 3 minutes, see if there's itching or irritation, and slowly go all the way till you do a swallow test and see how you react. So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. This is just a brief intro. This thing is a rabbit hole that goes deeper and deeper. But people like us are here to help. So bless you on your journey. I'm excited for you.